In the spring of 1556, the most powerful empire on earth faced a problem that seemed manageable. Spain controlled vast territories across Europe and the Americas. Silver flowed from mines in Peru and Mexico. The Spanish crown appeared invincible. But beneath the surface, a series of financial decisions were beginning to unravel the empire's stability. King Philip II inherited a kingdom already burdened by debt. His father, Charles V, had borrowed heavily to fund wars across Europe. When Philip took the throne, he inherited not just lands and titles, but obligations to bankers in Genoa, Augsburg, and Antwerp. The debts were substantial, but officials believed the empire's resources could cover them. The silver arriving from the New World created a false sense of security. Ships crossed the Atlantic carrying millions of ducats worth of precious metal. Advisors assured the king that this wealth would sustain Spain's ambitions. What they failed to recognize was that the silver was already spent before it arrived. Contracts with bankers, payments to soldiers, and funding for naval expeditions consumed the revenue before it reached the treasury. Spain's military commitments expanded faster than its income. The empire maintained garrisons in the Netherlands, fought Ottoman forces in the Mediterranean, and defended its American colonies. Each theater of operation required regular funding. Commanders sent requests for salaries, equipment, and supplies. The crown approved these expenses, confident that future silver shipments would balance the accounts. In 1557, less than 2 years into Philip's reign, the royal treasury ran dry. The government could not meet its obligations to creditors. Officials attempted to negotiate extensions, but the bankers demanded immediate payment. On January 1, 1557, Philip issued a decree suspending all debt payments. This was Spain's first sovereign default. The declaration sent shockwaves through Europe's financial centers. Merchants who had lent money to the crown faced ruin. Banking houses that had advanced funds found themselves unable to recover their investments. The suspension was meant to be temporary, but it damaged Spain's credibility. Future loans would come at higher interest rates if they came at all. The government attempted to restructure its obligations. Negotiators worked to convert short-term debts into long-term bonds. Some creditors accepted reduced payments. Others refused. The process dragged on for years, consuming administrative resources and political capital. Meanwhile, Spain's military needs did not diminish. By the 1570s, the pattern had become clear. Silver imports increased, but so did expenditures. The crown borrowed against future revenues, assuming the flow of wealth from the Americas would continue indefinitely. When shipments were delayed by storms or piracy, the treasury faced immediate shortages. Soldiers went unpaid. Suppliers stopped extending credit. The cycle repeated. In 1575, Philip declared a second default. This suspension was larger than the first. More creditors were affected. The economic disruption spread beyond Spain's borders. Trade slowed. Merchants hesitated to do business with Spanish officials. The empire's reputation as a reliable borrower eroded further. Records from the period show that administrators recognized the problem. Documents indicate that officials understood the kingdom was spending beyond its means. Yet the political and military pressures made it difficult to reduce commitments. Withdrawing from the Netherlands would mean abandoning Spanish authority in a wealthy region. Cutting naval operations would leave colonies vulnerable. Each expenditure seemed necessary in isolation. The financial system became increasingly dependent on short-term solutions. Tax revenues were pledged years in advance. New loans were taken to pay old debts. The practice, known as asientos, allowed the government to continue functioning, but at escalating cost. Interest rates climbed. The portion of revenue devoted to debt service grew larger each year. By the 1590s, Spain declared its third default. The intervals between suspensions were shortening. Each crisis required more complex negotiations and left deeper scars on the financial system. Creditors who had survived earlier defaults became more cautious. The pool of willing lenders shrank. Historians suggest that the empire's decline was not caused by any single decision. but by the accumulation of choices made under pressure. Officials operated within constraints that seemed to leave few alternatives. The military could not be withdrawn without losing territory. Taxes could not be raised without provoking unrest. Borrowing appeared to be the only option that preserved both security and stability in the short term. The long-term consequences became apparent gradually. Spain's ability to respond to challenges diminished, as debt payments consumed larger portions of revenue. Infrastructure projects were delayed. Administrative reforms were postponed. The gap between Spain and its rivals, particularly England and the Dutch Republic, widened. The final default of Philip's reign came in 1596. By then, the pattern was unmistakable. The empire could generate wealth, but could not manage it effectively. The system designed to support Spanish power had become the mechanism of its limitation. What appeared to contemporaries as temporary financial difficulties was, in fact, a structural problem. The empire's commitments exceeded its capacity to fund them sustainably. Each suspension of payments provided relief in the immediate moment, but made future crises more likely and more severe. Spain remained a major power for decades after Philip's death, but the financial instability set in motion during his reign continued to shape the empire's trajectory. The silver that once seemed limitless could not compensate for decisions that prioritized immediate needs over long-term solvency. The cost of these choices, measured not in a single dramatic collapse, but in decades of constrained options and diminished influence, became clear only as the years passed.